Hello, my name is Kim Billington. I'm introducing you to a new downloadable resource, which you can get from my website, kimbillington.com.au. It's a collection of 35 illustrations by Chris Munro, all around metaphors that can be helpful in counselling. So, of course, in the front cover, we've got an example of life. There are things that are wonderful in life, times we get to hang out with our friends and play and really, enjoy connection. And then there's others where we've got to do something that we don't want, or being forced to do something we don't want, or life's just tough. I would like to acknowledge that I live and work and play on the lands of the Bunurong people, southeast of Melbourne, Naarm. So Chris and I worked on my second book, Counselling Conversations, 10 Powerful Interviews with Seasoned Experts. And he did many drawings in this book, which really started me. He had one here: Alexa, turn down my anxiety. I love to color the pictures in the book, and it got me started. Pictures are really helpful. When people often gave comments that they loved the illustrations in my first book, and A Counselor's Companion, and the second book, and I thought, I use a lot of metaphors. What if Chris and I collaborate and create a resource using pictures, adding the metaphor, having some prompts available, and that will help counselors, develop another aspect of their practice. In that second book there, one of the illustrations is an example of I call it the t-shirt exercise. So I get people to cut out a t-shirt or draw a t-shirt shape on a piece of paper. And on the front, I'll get them to write down the things that they like the world to know. And this is the illustration. Everything's fine. On the back of the t-shirt, I get them to write the things that they don't want the world to know. So this one says, I can't cope. What's wrong with me? So that YouTube link there would take you to an example of that t-shirt exercise. But you can see through this image alone, something is conveyed to you. So the t-shirt is the metaphor, what we show the world. You can contact Chris via his email, fishscaleshingle@yahoo.com. And of course, I've got my website, kimbillington.com.au. I use narrative therapy as my primary theoretical approach, but also I use somatic and, of course, person-centered theories underpinning my work. Both of my books are available on my website as well. For those that are at the live recording event, there's some prizes. So soak in this little quote. Our souls do not speak human language. They communicate to us through symbols, metaphors, visions, poetry, deep feelings, and everyday magic. So a lot of you will have heard of the anger iceberg, and I never warmed to that. There's a metaphor. So I really felt that anger was far more of a heated, kind of fiery thing. So I looked at the element of fire, and the volcano came to mind. So many years ago, I drew this, and I asked clients, what are the 3 or 4 things that are happening before there's an explosion of anger? So say I'm working with a 10-year-old, they can draw this, or I can show this drawing, which is free downloadable from my website. And they can talk that through. And I talk about how anger is often a secondary emotion. It's not a real emotion. Anger involves an action. So either there's the clenched fist, or the jaw, or the look on the face, the bodily stance or movement, banging on the table or worse. And how anger is a normal human emotion. In fact, we'd want it if we have to go and help someone that's being assaulted in the street. We would, our anger at what's happening, we would run over and deal with that. Anger is very helpful for humanity. But again, using the volcano as a metaphor allows people to talk more and less shamefully about their anger. This is a very common metaphor that's used. I've also got a one that I use with male clients, firemen. But basically, we're looking at, within. I'll often say, oh look, you look so grown up. You're 35, and inside of you are all these other versions of yourself as you are developing your identity and experiencing some of the struggles of growing up. So what would you like to say to your 7-year-old self that experienced that trauma? What could you whisper in your little 7-year-old self's ear? And to have the tools, if it's an in-person session, to handle as well, that helps. I do a couple of professional development trainings with the Sydney Centre for Creative Change. And this is 2 of, I think, 6 that I do. And they involve metaphors. The first one is the sailboat of life. So that's something I designed myself, especially for male clients. Female clients love it too, but I found the one on the right, the tree of life, often doesn't land well as a creative expressive arts activity. So the sailboat, each part represents a part of the person. Like the hull contains 2 or 3 of the people that really have your back, that would be there for you as soon as they receive that text, either as a response or rock up at your door. The shark represents things that you worry about or your fears. And so male clients in particular will open up, if you like, and talk more about their life. The sail are the strengths, skills. The sailboat as like an introductory tool is available free on my website too. So journalists, poets, they use metaphors all the time. Elon Musk eats humble pie over unpaid bakery bill. I mean, has anyone seen a humble pie? No, but we know what it means. And now we're seeing some weather extremes on steroids. So metaphors have, for millennia, been part of our journey of communication. So I'm going to go through a few examples now of some of the 35 drawings in the book. And each drawing has an introductory statement, and then at the back of the book, or the last page of the resource, I laminate mine and then I can refer to it, is some question prompts around it. So you can print the book, go to Officeworks and print the downloadable resource, or print on demand. So as you're thinking of a client, you can print that picture and bring that to the session. So what's important in an animal companion? A lot of our clients have had a connection with a pet. Sometimes it's a really lovely introduction when you're getting to know someone is, did you have pets as a child? Because these kind of things really matter. The first time a child falls in love with someone that's not, from their birth family can often be a pet. I had a rabbit called Mr. Simply. Oh, I adored him. So the question at the back of the resource is, can you tell me a story about pets in your life? Pets of grandparents or friends? Think now, think to yourself, what was a pet that I had a connection with growing up? Was it a fish? Did I have a fish that I won at a fun fair? Did my grandparents have a cat? The story that you will tell yourself and the story your clients will tell you will open up some often really positive, strength-based, identity lifting story. So in my case, we didn't have a family dog until I was in my teens, but my grandparents had a little fox terrier. And even at the young age of 9, when I went to visit and stay for a few days, I was allowed to take that little dog, their precious dog, on a walk over a kilometre to a park and let the dog off the lead and take it back again. That sense of being trusted, and that was really important to me and developed part of my temperament, my personality. Another one is about emotional nourishment. So we do know that a lot of problems that clients struggle with began back in childhood, and clients are often quite reluctant to go back to childhood. Um, so one of the things that that you can look at is, well, what did you miss out on? Now, of course, it's not a hamburger, as in Chris's illustration. Um, the prompt at the back of the book is, imagine going back to hug the little you, which is like the Russian dolls, yeah? What would you whisper in their ear? Why is that important to you? What were you needing? What were the unmet needs of the younger self? And again, you can do that somatic work as the client goes back. It's heavy stuff, yeah? Without the prompt and the metaphor, the client might find it almost impossible to go back, yeah? But you show them this picture, it opens up that sense of, yes, there was something missing. Mm. Chris has done a wonderful job with these illustrations. So this is a really lovely one for the first session. What are your hopes in asking for help? Now, people can colour in these drawings just like I love to do. um, and the question prompt, yeah. Who else is in your support team? What has helped before? So this is a really great one to get a sense of who's in the client's network. Who do they connect with? And if they say a friend, or how often do you catch up with that friend? Is it, how did you get to know them? And what they tell you, the story they tell you, will have all sorts of things in it. A little problem might come up, or the person might have cooled off on them for a while and they've just re-engaged, or whatever. So in narrative therapy, we're listening to the problem that emerges, and we're also listening to the strengths and the skills and the identity, hopes and things like that of the client. So we're doing this thing called double listening. Another drawing. If your life was a book, what would the next chapter be called? So this is something you would use towards the end of therapy. So you've worked with some of the current problems. You might have gone back and looked at the possible history of the problem. And you're coming to the last couple of sessions, and maybe you've been working on steps that the client wants to take. And the prompt here, are you writing your life or mostly rereading older chapters? Of course, you can add to the prompts. You're not limited to the ones I put at the back, but this is often, again, you that are counselors watching, you know what it's like. Someone comes in, and just when they're about to kind of step into the future, they withdraw and they go back, oh, well, into the past. So by presenting their life as the chapters in a book, and that there's been hurtful things in earlier chapters, and of course we're listening also for some of the beautiful chapters when something special happened. Someone got some roller skates or roller blades for their birthday unexpectedly, or whatever. But so again, these metaphor illustrations can go in any direction. How does your body tell you to change things? So I want you to reflect now, as you're sitting here watching this. What does my body say to me to let me know things are uncomfortable or not right? On the bottom left, it says, what is pain saying to you? So if you're sitting in a chair and you've got this backache or neck ache, your body might be saying, oh, move that neck, rotate the head a little bit, nice and gently. Ah, a tightness in the chest might be saying, take a breath, take a chill pill. And then what is in your first aid kit? You see, these are metaphors. It might be some mindful stretching. Might be going for a walk. That could be in your first aid kit. So again, the index at the back has got the picture words and then some possible prompts. And I use this metaphor. It's not in the resource, but I use this metaphor with clients who are struggling. Maybe they're carers of a family member with dementia, or an adult son with schizophrenia, and they're the primary care giver for that person, or children with autism spectrum problems. So carers and counselors who are giving of themselves are often looking for a job that's not too stressful. And so there's a story about these two frogs, and it's the middle of summer and they're very dehydrated and they're looking for a pond or something and there's nothing. But then they can smell water somewhere and they come to a house where the back door's open and they hop into the kitchen. They can smell the water and it's actually in a pot on the stove at the back. The heat's turned way down, but the water's cool. When they jump in, oh my goodness, that feels great. But of course, over time, as the water gets warmer and warmer, it's so incremental they don't notice until it's too late. And how often is that with our clients? They say to us, oh, I've got this new relationship. It's really nice. I'm just worried about this one little thing, but look, it'll be fine. Or I've just been employed. I had the interview and now I'm starting a new job. It sounds wonderful. I've told all my friends. And then they get there and within a few weeks, there's the pressure for the KPIs and, oh, no, you can't do that. And, oh, I know we said that you could work remotely and come to the office, but actually we've decided you're only coming to the office, or there's micromanagement. So what happens is incrementally one thing on top of another, and all of a sudden we're not coping. Our bodies are telling us something's wrong, but we're often locked in. We feel locked in. So that's why supervision's great. It's a great place to talk about those feelings and work out, what's important here. Oh, this is an examples here of some of the training I do. I love doing this one called Seeing My Journey. That takes place over 3 sessions, 3 2-hour sessions for counsellors to really look at their personal and professional journey, and that we draw it as a map. So we scaffold that with narrative practices, grief and loss, and that kind of thing. If you're working with children, and are not sure how to work well with the parents, there's one here called Preparing Parents for Child Counselling. There's a 3-hour one called Playful Therapy. So if you're new to child counselling and don't really want to go down the whole sand tray play therapy model, I introduce many different ideas I use when I'm working with children in a playful way. Remembering Dan Hughes' PACE, playful, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. That's what we need to be. And the one on the bottom right here, Stories for Therapy, that's a bit like the one I've just told you about the frogs. So we can tell a story and it conveys something that the listener goes, oh yeah, that's, whew, yeah. So the Stories for Therapy are stories we can tell in session to a client. And that's where I teach you the kind of stories, very short stories, 2 or 3 minute ones that can be effective. And at the top left, we've got narrative therapy, introduction and externalizing, part A. And then we've got mapping the journey after trauma and loss. So that's a series of half a dozen ways to bring narrative therapy into a creative, expressive art. So there's the 2 books. Counselling Conversations was my second book, illustrated by Chris Munro, and A Counselor's Companion, Creative Adventures for Child Counsellors, Parents and Teachers, was my first book, an Amazon bestseller. How about that? And that was illustrated by Tamar Dolev. So I am very grateful for where I am in my life, and I can give back and share some of the things I've learned. They won't all fit for you, but that's okay. We can cherry pick. Isn't that a good metaphor? Thank you very much. Hope you've been inspired by some of these things.